Welcome, fellow ski and boarding enthusiasts, to Fresh Corduroy, the podcast that takes you on a thrilling journey through the snowy slopes, exploring the passion and excitement that skiing and boarding brings to people's lives. I'm your host, Craig Zolan, and I'm thrilled to be your guide on this adventure. Each week, we'll dive into the world of skiing and boarding, chatting with fascinating individuals who have a deep-seated love for this exhilarating sport. From professional athletes to celebrities, from beginners to experts, we'll hear their stories, share their experiences, and uncover what it is about skiing and boarding that ignites their passion. So grab your skis, buckle up your boots, and get ready to be inspired, entertained, and thoroughly excited to hit the slopes. This is Fresh Corduroy, where the snow is our playground and the thrill of the ride is our passion. Let's dive in. All right. Well, welcome to the Fresh Corduroy podcast. Today's guest is Martin Wilson. Martin, thank you for joining us.
Absolute pleasure. Who doesn't love fresh corduroy in this business?
Everyone should love fresh corduroy.
I know, it's a given.
Yeah. Martin, I'll give you your brief bio and add if I miss anything, but you are currently the Ontario Ski Team men's head coach, as well as the host of the Next Turn podcast, a podcast about skiing and ski racing, where you are in pursuit of better.
Amen.
Better coaches, better athletes, better parents, and better fans. And on the podcast, you interview the top ski racers and coaches of today. Previously, Martin coached at St. Michael's College, Killington Mountain School, Stratton Mountain School, National Ski Academy, and Bowdoin College, which I will probably inquire about at some point. So welcome to the pod.
Thank you. It's good to have some fresh corduroy in my life.
Did I miss anything?
No, but I feel awfully old. Or I've been a bit of a journeyman is what I have been. I'm sure we'll talk about it, but you mentioned all those places. If you drew a map of where I've been, there's some frequent flyer miles in there. I think I was running from something for years, I think.
Perhaps. So question, but obviously I sort of just outlined what you've been doing more recently, but I'm really curious about where it's all started. Where and when did you get started skiing? What is the Martin Wilson origin story?
I am a grassroots guy. I grew up in a little town called Thunder Bay, Ontario, which it's hard to get to without making a few conscious choices to get there. In northern Ontario, Little Hill, my whole family started on the same day. I was 2, my brother was 5, and my parents were 20-something and 30-something. We all started on the same day. They were immigrants from England, and we fell in love with this sport at this little mountain called Loch Lomond. Fun fact, the person who taught me how to ski was a crazy Canuck, Dave Irwin. Dave Irwin, the Canadian legend, his dad owned Loch Lomond in Thunder Bay and was around for this free event, and he taught me how to ski. And from there, I've been doing it ever since.
And did you know then, consciously or subconsciously, that like you were, this was it?
I would say this. It's not that I knew then. I didn't know anything else. I grew up skiing. It was what we did. It was our family culture. And again, my parents were new to it as well. But there was a local ski club, the Nor'Westers Alpine Club. We had a little corner of the lodge at Loch Lomond, and everybody I knew, everybody I socialized with, everybody my parents knew, everybody my parents socialized with, everything we did had something to do with skiing for my whole upbringing. And for better or worse, it was great. And it's funny, that from this small little community of probably 100,000 people, it's amazing how many people from Thunder Bay have continued on to different aspects in the sport. Like they're everywhere. They're everywhere.
That's great. So I gather you skied, I don't know if you were racing or not, but skiing obviously in grade school and high school. Did you start racing during that time as well?
Well, you didn't do a lot of free skiing in Thunder Bay. How's that? It was lots of gates, it was lots of gate training, lots of racing. You had to do something to make it excited. And I skied, I had a mediocre at best career until I was 19, 20 years of age. But I ended up my racing career out in British Columbia at a place called Silver Star Mountain, and it happened to be an incredible resort, but filled with incredibly smart people. Some of the best coaches in Canada were there, some of the best ski instructors in Canada were there. Freestyle skiers were there, the Nordic skiers. It was just this hub of skiing greatness. I got hooked early on education and coaches education and ski education, and I became a student of the game and became a teacher of the game after that. And again, did I know I was going to do it? No, but I just didn't know what else I was going to do.
Interesting. Yeah. So I gather shortly after, your 20s or even in your 20s, you basically got started coaching right from then and into that laundry list of stops along the way.
Yeah, I got my journeyman papers and I was off. Yeah, I spent a couple years going through the coaches education system in Canada, like 3 years, and then I went down to the United States, started coaching at a pretty high level right off the bat. Got lucky. There's a saying in coaching: if you want to be a better coach, get better athletes. One of the first jobs I had, I rolled into, it was incredible athletes, and we put a bunch of kids on the U.S. ski team. I looked like a hero as a coach. You combine a little success early and a lot of ambition, and I was off and running.
That's terrific. That's terrific. And obviously, we both have a few gray hairs. I think
I don't have gray hairs. I have no hairs.
I still see a few hairs, but
Okay.
you have. I know you have a family. You have kids. Is skiing a family affair?
It isn't and it isn't. Not to get too personal, like all my kids ski. They're great skiers. They love to ski and they will ski for the rest of their lives. And that was the box I really wanted to check as a parent. I went through a divorce when they were young, and because of geography, the skiing opportunity didn't really pan out for them. More like full-time racing. They play every other sport. They're incredibly athletic. They're competitive. And again, they love to ski, so maybe I just saved myself a few $100,000 anyways. But we can go skiing anywhere in the world. Like, I feel like I could put them on a helicopter tomorrow and we could ski anywhere in the world. And really, as a parent, what else do you want?
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, skiing with family and being able to share those memories are things that I'll treasure. Like you talk about a number of things in terms of getting started, whether it be at Thunder Bay or somewhere else. It's putting skis on a toddler and letting them slide for the first time is very memorable. Hopefully for both participants.
Yeah, like I think you want to be careful to make sure it's, especially when they do get into competitive skiing and competitive racing, that it is their journey and their experience. But God, it's fun as a parent to introduce your kids to this sport. Like, it is, of all the sports to pass down from generation to generation, like this is truly a family legacy sport, and there's something special about it.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the reasons why I wound up getting my son into skiing. It is a lifetime sport. That's what I think. One of the things that's great about it, there are, whether it be lacrosse or football or baseball, like those are not things that people are actively participating in when they're older, as a general rule. So being able to do this as a family for a long time is, I think, one of the wonderful aspects of it.
Yeah, like looking at generations on the chairlift together is pretty cool. Yeah. Like watching, child and father and grandfather and sometimes great grandfather or mother, or you know what I mean, like that connection. I don't know, maybe golf you get it, maybe it's
Golf,
tennis in
tennis,
some way,
yeah,
but maybe I don't know, our sport is something special.
Yeah. Do you get a chance to ski with them during the course of
Every
the
so
season?
often, and boy, I had a day over break in the rain in Akimo. It was an awful day, but it was one of the best days of the year. At this point, any day that has ski poles is a pretty good day. Like, there's not many of those. For me, there's a lot of days with skis, not many days with ski poles. So any day with ski poles is good. But I still love to free ski, and like, there's no greater joy than having my 3 kids on a chairlift.
Yeah. So, one of the things that, I remarked at in terms of looking at your career and what you're doing today is you're very passionate about ski racing. It's evident on your podcast. It's evident in speaking to you. I think your passion obviously is around skiing more broadly as well. But like, how does that mix of being very active as a ski racing coach, and mixed with the desire to go out and free ski and what do people call it? A soul shred, or I'm sure mixing it up a little bit, but
The soul ski, yeah. Like I like
yeah,
it. I like a good soul ski. You know what? The older I get, I think the less of a difference there is if you're doing it right. If there's anything I've learned from the World Cup athletes I've spoken to on the podcast and I've known and worked with or whatever, chatted with over the years, is the ones that are successful, the ones that are just enjoying it, like giddy and laughing, but like truly embrace the process. And outside of the sport of skiing, the people that are truly successful are embracing the process, being in the moment, and that's really hard, and that's everything. So whether it's being present on the chairlift with my 3 kids, having a soul ski, or whether I'm an Olympian pushing down the hill as fast as I can, I think being soulful, not to go off topic, but being soulful is just when the body and the mind sort of align. Right? And that's what we're shooting for in ski performance. The edge angles and boot flexion, by the time you get to the World Cup, everybody's got. You know what I mean? It's about aligning the mind, the body, and the soul to have a moment, right? And so a soul ski or fast skiing or extreme skiing or powder skiing or whatever, the whole object is the same. It's just to be in the moment, have that moment. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Namaste.
no, my pleasure. Look, I wanted to talk to people who are passionate about skiing, and I think you find passion in learning. I think you're intellectually curious. It comes through in terms of the podcasts and the questions that you ask, and the thing that you said to me when we first met at the bottom of the hill at Catamount, which was you do it for an audience of one, meaning yourself. And I think that learning, your constant learning quest and journey is sort of evidence of your passion for the sport, and you have that. Like, so I assume it's that there's got to be both a give and take, right? One, it's just educational is part of that passion, but what do you get from also the athletes? I assume, I'm guessing, but correct me if I'm wrong, that you must take something, whether you derive joy or something else from working with a group of athletes over time and seeing them succeed in various facets.
I think, well, thank you for the kindness, but I think I've said this before, and we sort of opened the podcast with this pursuit of better. I think the pursuit of better is really noble, and I love being involved with that. Whether it's my pursuit of better or your pursuit of better or a friend's, like, it is we talk about building culture and community, and I want to be part of the let's get better. At something. Let's move forward community. And I love that. And so when I get to work with athletes that are in the trenches struggling to make the national team or the development team or an NCAA team, it's probably not wise to live vicariously through the emotions of 18 to 22-year-old males. Like, that's probably not sage advice to do that. But boy, is it fun to be in the trenches, especially in this day and age, with young athletes that are bold enough and strong enough and vulnerable enough to say, I want that, and I'm going to go get that, and I'm going to get my ass kicked along the way, but I'm going to try to figure it out. And that's cool. That's what I get out of it. And like, the pursuit of better isn't all just because I love learning. A lot of it too is because I've been humbled. Like, I've learned some tough lessons and had to question myself. When I started the podcast, the first thing I did was went back to former athletes I coached and did exit interviews, essentially. And that's not because I wanted my own tires to be pumped up, but it's because I wanted to, like, was I a good coach or was I a shitty coach or was I somewhere in the middle?
Interesting. Yeah. And how were the exit interviews? Like, what did you learn?
Oh, that's a good one. Well, I got a podcast out of it, so there's that.
Yeah.
But I learned that I was better at some things. I learned that my strengths weren't necessarily what I thought they were. At least according to athletes. And I think I was a young coach, found success early. I had a bit of a quick wit, sharp tongue. You know what I mean? Like, I could fake a lot of it. I think you just gotta check yourself every so often and have some humility to check yourself, but also be willing to be humbled and stand back up and look. And those exit interviews, Martin knows his stuff. Sometimes you were kind of a prick, Martin. Like, sometimes, like, You cared about things that I didn't like. You made me care about things that I didn't care about, or which is good or not good. It all depends. It's just really interesting. I think the biggest lesson I've learned, here's the short version of it. The biggest lesson I've learned is not about me as a coach anymore. It's not. If I'm going to be successful as a coach at the highest level or whatever level I'm at, I've got to win Best Supporting Actor. I can't win Best Actor. Best Supporting Actor. That's the only Oscar category I am interested in at this point in my.
It's a good metaphor for what it is.
Sorry, it took me so long to get there. Forgive me.
No. It's great. So for both for my edification and for the listeners' edification, what is the Ontario ski team? I mean, we don't here in the U.S. Have provincial or state ski teams or region ski teams. So what is that in Canada, and how does that work into
the Ontario ski team? There's obviously we all have provinces. There's 4 major alpine provinces. There's British Columbia and Alberta, obviously, west, and Ontario and Quebec out east. There's the other provinces have teams, but those are the 4 most competitive. And essentially, when the system works well, it's a feeder system for the national team. My job is to promote kids to the national development team or NCAAs or that kind of path. There's some government subsidies involved, which makes it an interesting relationship with the athletes and the families, which so it's cheaper, but there's also, I don't know, a little less customer base. It's a little more cooperative in some ways. The program itself invests a lot of money in the athletes. And it's seen some different organizations. It's a team that when I grew up in Thunder Bay, I was shooting for the Ontario ski team, so it's fun to go back to this team and coach it. But it's just one cog in the development wheel. In the States, on the East Coast for sure, you don't have it because of all the academies. But in the West, you have the Western region. Sort of as a version of that. The whole idea is just trying to bring the best athletes in the province together and compete.
Got it. So I gather that the age, well, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Are some of the kids on the provincial teams coming from ski academies first, and then they graduate to that, or is it coming from club? Yeah.
All of the guys on my team are post-grad kids. They're all outside of high school, 18 to 21 range. And that fluctuates, depends on where the fastest kids are and where the best kids are and who wants to be a part of the program. And I'm in my first cycle here, so I got to go learn how to go get my team for next year too. I'll report back.
Okay. So there's a bit of recruiting involved.
Yeah. There is. Turns out, I didn't know that.
Well, that's interesting. I wonder if the U.S. could learn a little bit. Obviously, I know Alpine Canada is having some funding issues itself. U.S. Ski and Snowboard has financial constraints as well. So, but maybe there are lessons to be learned in terms of.
I would say that there's no country that has a monopoly on the right idea. I know that much. That no one country, the grass is not that much better over there. Austrians have their own issues. Austrian athletes have their own grievances. Norwegians have their own issues. We all do. I will say that the sport has made a lot of progress in the last, 10, 15 years maybe, to become a little more athlete-centric. We've got a ways to go. But that really is where the progress is. That's where all sports are changing it, more about the athlete. That doesn't mean more skiing, more time on snow, more everything. It just means let's be more thoughtful and care more.
Yeah, I've seen, it's interesting. I've seen both some recognition of that point as well as, I think there are always those that are reluctant to change. And, in the U.S., and you probably should just ask there's a finite number of NCAA, collegiate teams, ski teams. And, ballpark, it's 40 athletes per gender per year that kind of come into that top tier, whether it's the EISA or, RIMSA. And half of those tend to go to, non-US athletes, give or take. It's, there's been discussion. I've been, a participant in some of those conversations around, how do you modify NCAA skiing or more broadly collegiate skiing to, I think call it, provide more runway to athletes who want to pursue skiing at the highest level. Because I think there are a lot of academy kids who, it's quote D1, which is, EISA or RIMSA or bust. And the size of the, population that they can take is very limited. And so it's an unfortunate circumstance. So the question is, how do you modify it? And I want, curious as your take. I mean, you were coaching at St. Michael's for some period of time, and
I got a few thoughts on that. One is, I think we got to define success first, right? And I think I don't know, it's a combination of, I think of a U14 parent standing at the bottom of the race course. I don't know, what are they really defining success as, and where does it go sideways? And is it really like, I'm coming out here with my kid every weekend because I think in 10 years a school will pay for my kid's tuition?
I don't think there are any. Well, I don't think there are many, if any.
No, what I'm saying is, like, I don't think there's any actual thought like that.
Right.
But we act like that. We trend towards sort of those pathways a lot. And hey, I'm a hyper competitive person. I like to, if I'm involved, I want to beat you at Scrabble or at a running race or a tennis. Like, I want to beat you. But saying that, like, that's not everybody. That can't be the definition of success. Like, my job is to promote kids to the next team or whatever, but at the end of the day, my job is to make good humans, like high performing, high functioning humans, period, right? And that's the goal. And I think we can talk about the broader chaos in youth sports for days, but in skiing, I think the longer you're in this sport, one, you're going to get better at it, but the longer you're in this sport, the more you get from it, right? And the less you expect from this sport, the more you get from it. I say this often, you show me a 22-year-old ski racer, I'll show you a young adult in college that's got their shit together, that can handle some stuff. I've got friends that recruit for big businesses in Manhattan, and I go look for outdoor sports D1 athletes because they can balance stuff, they can take criticism, they can learn, they can be coached, they can diversify interests, they can, like, that's the investable thing. That's why you're going there with your family every weekend. But we don't talk about that enough. I wish we did, because that's what it is. It's not about making this development team or the national team or doing this. Like, Michaela Schifrin's ruined it for all of us. Like, now we have dreams of winning 100 World Cups. It's like, stop it. You can't. Nobody can. Like, yeah. That's not human. That's not the goal.
No, certainly it isn't the goal. What I saw, though, and what I've written about is that the peak competitor population here in the U.S. is as a second-year U12.
Yeah.
And then it just falls off a cliff.
Yes.
And I think some of that is attributable to parents and, less so the athletes at 11 years old saying, hey, what sport becomes more marketable, for college applications, like what's going to give me the edge in getting into a top school, right? And giving me potentially an opportunity to play that sport at the collegiate level. And, it's not ski racing, it's something other than that. And so that, from my vantage point, was a shame for, I'll call it the national governing bodies, basically say, hey, like, you want to keep kids in sport, in your particular sport, for as long as possible, because you never know when the next, prodigy or right?
Amen.
And so I think some of that has to do with, it's not making the U.S. ski team or winning a World Cup or 100 of them. It's what gives you more opportunities in life from call it a marketing perspective. And that's, getting yourself into college. And then, beyond that, that job, right? The interview that says you were a collegiate athlete, you must have your shit together.
Yeah. It's such a big topic, because I'll just say this. I think the NCAA is the best feeder system in the world. It's 4 extra years of athletic and social and personal development on somebody else's team, right? I think our sport is difficult with NCAA because, well, for a few reasons. One, where it fits into the athletic gap, or like those 4 years fits into like the athletic growth, is probably a little early or a little late. It's perfect. 18 to 22 college age is perfect for basketball. It's perfect for. It's not quite where it should be, that window, 4 years for skiing, perhaps. There's talk about changing.
I'm curious, what would be ideal if Martin
Well,
was designing a whole new
quite
school?
honestly, it's 18 to 22 is what college age is supposed to be. If you look at what NCAA skiing those 4 years are, it's 22 to 26, which is probably more realistic place to have it. Like, I think it makes sense. But what you're getting, though, is because our North American system hasn't really done a great job of using the NCAA as part of the pipeline. And because you can be 25 racing in college coaches don't get paid to make sure the U.S. development system works. They get paid to win. So I've got my Norwegian hookup. I've got, like, of course, this kid's coming off the World Cup. Of course.
But is that ideal for the development path? Like,
No.
I guess no. Right. Okay.
No, hard no.
Yeah.
Hard no. But I will say that the U.S. ski team has Anouk Patty is sort of taking the lead a little bit on working with the NCAA. There's in the new criteria to make the team. There's a pathway through NCAA to get there. That's super promising. That's super healthy. We've got a ways to go, though. Like a ways to go.
And I think it requires, people to think bigger, right? I think
and it requires putting some toothpaste back in the tube.
I've always struggled with that.
It's damn near impossible. I've had to do it a couple of times, but academies sell success, sell college access, sell trips around the world, and then you graduate high school and you're 3 years away from being able to compete on a NCAA team. What do you have? Like, you're 10 years away from, like, being mature enough to be on the World Cup. What do we do with you? What are we going to do with you? Like, we got to figure out something.
It's an awkward period.
The Ontario ski team, the British Columbia ski team, the Western Region ski team.
Yeah.
What could be the Eastern Regional ski team. You know what I mean? A step below the development teams. Something national base, something, yeah.
Right.
Toothpaste back in the tube. I haven't solved that one yet.
Yeah. So let me ask you, I mentioned Bowdoin. I said I would circle back to it. When I was racing in college, which was just a few short years ago, Bowdoin had a team. We raced against one another. It was an NCAA Division B, as they call it, EISA Division B at the time. Were you coaching during that era, or was it something other than that?
No, my tenure was the 5 years where it was actually, we competed D1 skiing. So we skied up. We skied up for 5 years, and it was a steep learning curve, and it was expensive, and then the program got cut. It was a guy got brought in to do it. I did it, and then they said, just kidding, we can't do it anymore. And there's a club team now. It's great. It's probably more suited as a club team just geographically where it was. Hour and 45 minutes away from training. It was tough. But also, at some point, though, like, how does a New England school not have a ski team?
Well, listen, I think that, that's another component of the collegiate ski racing challenge, which is economics and funding, right? So
yeah,
there are things.
I would say there's almost 200 schools in USCSA.
Yeah.
CA. There's a whole bunch of schools competing with club teams, and it's terrific. And a lot of those kids are pretty good ski racers. A lot of them are drunk and having the time of their lives, but a lot of them are pretty good ski racers.
Yeah, and sometimes they're both, right?
Sometimes those are just the same people.
Exactly. No, listen, no kids who have, tried to ski at the the D1 level and didn't make it and are now at the top tier, USCSA school. From all accounts, enjoying themselves, being able to go to races and the like. And
Rec league ski team forever, period.
Yeah. Well, listen, I will tell you a story. So I went to law school out in Colorado, and we, with some other classmates of mine, and then also college ski team mates of mine who had moved out to Colorado, collectively put together a ski team for a beer league up at Eldora. I will tell you, that was the most serious beer league ski race ever. I mean, we showed up for beers and wings. Like that's what we were there for.
Yeah.
There were folks, that were stripping down into suits. I don't know if you're Hank Cashua.
Yeah.
He was racing. There was a slew of, ex U.S. team, ex whatever national team in the beer league. It was very serious stuff.
When you mention that, I think of my upbringing. When you talk about culture in a community, masters racing and beer league racing, or whatever you want to call it, long-term racing, this brings so much positivity to a club, to a mountain. So much energy. It's incredible. When I grew up in Thunder Bay, we had the Nancy Green Ski League that I raced in. And then there was like the Lake Superior Ski Division. Like that's where the best kids went. Like when you were like 14, you started racing fists and stuff. You were a big deal. And then there was this series of races called the Senior Circuit, right? And that was the beer league stuff. And then, like I said, Dave Irwin was from Thunder Bay, and he was racing on the World Cup. So I literally thought the pathway was Nancy Green, divisional team, Senior Circuit, World Cup. Like I thought that was the pathway. But like to go back to where we started, that's where you get the generations from. You see it. You see guys pursuing better week after week. You see guys that don't belong in downhill suits stuffing themselves in downhill suits because they want to go faster. And that's incredible. Like that kind of energy and that kind of excitement is contagious.
So it comes back to the passion, right? I mean, the passion sticks with you, right? If you caught the bug, whether as a 5-year-old, a 15-year-old, or a 50-year-old, right? You've got it for life.
What is it? They say I was having a deep conversation with somebody about, how come kids are leaving the sport? They're not as passionate as they used to be. Blah 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 blah. I said, yeah, all that is true. But isn't there that quote that said, before you diagnose yourself with depression, make sure you're not hanging out with a bunch of assholes. And sort of as from the perspective of young kids quitting at 14, 15, 16 years of age. Maybe that's on us. Maybe they're not depressed. Maybe they're hanging out with a bunch of assholes that are taking the fun out of it. As coaches, that to me, like, if you're not having a good time, look at the people in the chair. Like,
right.
Start there. Get a new chair.
Yeah, no, I've had that happen with my son. I mean, who just did not have a good year last year. Like he was not happy, and
yeah,
when he told me, he's like, I just am not having fun. I was.
Yeah, like there's something we said for like I go back and forth. It's like, yeah, I want everybody to have fun, and like the edgy Martin comes out and says stuff like, well, have you ever tried winning? Because winning seems fun. Look at them on the podium. That looks pretty fun. Like, like there's that edginess.
Yeah.
But to me, it's not about having fun. But it goes back to what I was saying. Is like enjoying the process.
Yeah.
Like enjoying as many moments as you can get. No, you don't have to enjoy doing like the actual moment of your 16th squat set. No, but you have to enjoy the greater process. And you have to enjoy the pursuit of better. Like you have to really embrace that.
Yeah, well, I think growing up, say at Thunder Bay or at some small hill in the Berkshires where I did, you're right. Like you've got to make it interesting. And that's, running gates makes it more interesting. And if you love just going up and down and, going through a course and, trying to get faster. Back then we had like a self-timing course, and it was like, that was all I needed. It was like, okay, I want to can I shave a tenth off? Can I,
can I get that much closer to my dad? Can I get that much closer to my uncle? You're a catamount, right? Now imagine if there's a dual slalom set up at catamount on the regular, and there's a group of parents racing it, and there's a bunch of kids racing it, and brothers and sisters, and it's just up. Like, it's not timed, it's just up, and it's just there. That people get into it, you know what I mean? Like, that's the stuff. When people say, "Are you having fun?" That's probably the stuff they're talking about.
Yeah, agreed. Speaking of fun, what is your favorite ski memory?
Ski memory?
Do you have a memory of, like, whether it's skiing
I've been blessed. I've got to
or...
ski. I've got to ski at a bunch of different places in my life, and I've got to call a few special places home. Loch Lomond being one in Thunder Bay, Silver Star Mountain in British Columbia being another, Saddleback, Maine, a little place up in northern Maine. And that to me is where I had my most special day, and it was the day that I was skiing with my 3 kids. It was the first time my youngest son, it was like he was 3, but he was finally skiing, right? So I had my 3-year-old, my 5-year-old, my 7-year-old, and we were ripping around, getting on lifts together, riding the quad, and it was just incredible. Like, I know that sounds cheesy, and maybe that's not the answer. Like, I've had some incredible powder days here and some peaks here and whatever, but that to me is like everything.
No, I mean, I would agree with you. If I, certainly skiing with family, and particularly like you cited when they were very young, like those were very memorable days, and some of my favorites. So I don't think it's cheesy. I think it's just, it rings true to me.
Well, it is cheesy, but you're cheesy too then. How's it?
Yeah, I guess so. We both be called full of cheese. So a few parting questions, and then we'll wrap up. So obviously you're on snow as part of your job. So how often do you ski? Like, and I guess maybe, I know, my kid has counted days on snow. Arguably you might do that with your team. So you basically could extrapolate how many days you're on snow. What does that look like for you?
Well, there's 2 different categories, days on snow and days of skiing. Days of skiing include poles. And this year with poles, I've had 5 days so far with poles. So that's actually a pretty good number. Feet in boots on snow, we're coming up to about under 100 days already, starting in July. Down to South America a couple times, Scandinavia, British Columbia, we're in it.
Yeah. So
we are in it. We always joke, oh, you're a ski coach. That's so cool. You get to ski all the time. It's like, oh, you think Bill Belichick plays a lot of football? Like, not so much, right?
Yeah,
like,
right.
He's on the football field a whole lot. Skiing, I've had some ebbs and flows with my skiing relationship of how I feel on my skis and how good I think I am or feel, and how the body works. And it is really difficult to ski and keep up with skiing as a coach at this level. Like, it's just hard. And I'm here at Burke, and I don't know if it'll happen because of the weather, but I brought my touring skis and my skins in case I wanted to go up and do a lap. I haven't come out yet, but like, I'm opportunistic like that.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's still tomorrow.
Yeah. And because for me as a coach too, I think I gotta be happy. Like, the same way, like, if an athlete is happier, they're more likely to perform. If an athlete has a happy home life or their shit together, they're more likely to perform. It's the same as a coach. Like, if I'm miserable and tired and broken, I'm probably not the same kind of coach I am, like, when I'm in a great spot. And so my relationship with skiing is important. I need to go out there and ski every so often. I make an effort to it. I don't get to do it enough, but like, I'm investable. And I don't think many coaches are able to articulate that like that, but I'm investable. Like, my health and welfare and mental health and wellness is important enough to look after in this season because it affects so many people.
And I'm curious, I mean, having that, mental health has become much of, it's not taboo any longer. It's, more openly discussed. And I think people recognize the importance of it in both everyday life and athletic performance. Do you call it, mental health day? People tend to think of that as that day off, but even just, again, going out for a free ski day and just having fun, skiing in the trees if that's, available to you, like doing something not gate driven, and maybe not even directed free ski, but just going out and having a good time, both for yourself and for the athletes. Does that ever factor into your plans?
It was one of the first things when I took this job with the Ontario team. It was actually kind of good and bad, the podcast, to get hired, because a lot of my beliefs are in those podcasts. My boss was actually a guest on the podcast at one point, so like there's some familiarity there. But I was really clear about being really healthy towards the athletes, as far as rest, as far as support, as far as pressure control, as far as all of it. And we had the mantra, we don't need more days, we need better days. We don't need more runs, we need better runs. We don't need more conversations, we need better conversations. So in that sort of mindset, from the beginning, I cut days out of our training schedule. I took 10 days off of snow, and we brought in a team sports psychologist to work with it, not individually about performance, but how we work as a group, team rules, team culture, all that. We take that very seriously. We hired somebody to help us with meditation. I've got 18 to 22-year-old boys doing meditation. Again, with the idea, we don't need more runs, we need better runs. Like, what if you could use your chairlift ride every so often if you're in a struggle, and you could clear your mindset and reset? What if that was the 6 minutes? What if you were able to get another couple runs out of a day because you were in a better... Like, I don't know, like, that's where the margins are. That's... Ski performance, high performance, is just human performance. It's the same. This is why coaches are going into being corporate coaches. It's the same. Human performance. What are your strengths? How do we support your strengths? What do you need help with? What's your best mindset for you to think clearly? You know what I mean? How do you do your best work? How do we support that? Like, it's the same stuff. It's not that complicated. And what's great now is, like 20 years ago, if there was a coach talking about having fun and doing meditation and relaxing and no stress, that would be called a stylistic choice. Now it's just the science. Like, I'm not doing it because I want to be a nice guy. It helps that I can be a nice guy and get this. I'm doing it because this is the best path forward. Like, the science, the data says don't be a dick. Like, and you can be successful.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've tried to practice that during my corporate career, in terms of not being an asshole boss, right?
Yeah.
Like,
everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs to be supported. Like, coaches need to be coached. Coaches need to be supported. I want to be in an environment where I can try and fail and be dusted off and supported. So do athletes, right? Like, I want to be in a healthy place. I want to be able to sleep at night. I want them to be able to sleep at night. It's just basic shit. Like, the pole plants and the edge angles and the boot flexion, we already got that.
Yeah, agreed. Well, with that, I want to thank you very much, Martin, for being the inaugural guest on the Fresh Corduroy podcast.
Well, I hope I didn't ruin it for guest two. I hope I didn't ruin it so you do get a guest two.
Well, someone's committed, but we'd have to schedule the times. There's that, and so we'll.
Well, good luck on Fresh Corduroy. I love the concept. Like we talked about at the bottom of Catamount, like, I think there's so much space to share stories and passions and ideas in our sport. And thanks for putting in the effort. It takes some courage, so thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks again, Martin.
Absolute pleasure.
If you are listening now, you've listened to the entire episode, and for that we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We also wouldn't mind you telling your friends about the Fresh Corduroy podcast too. If you have any guest ideas for Fresh Corduroy, don't hesitate to contact us via DM on Instagram at Fresh Corduroy Podcast. Music by Craig Zolan from his album Calder's Universe, which can be found on Spotify.